Have you ever gotten into an argument that you knew was pointless? You talk, they talk, you try to explain, they try to refute, and in the end you just get tired, frustrated, and nowhere. But strangely enough, you still keep participating. Why? Because inside each of us there is a part that wants to be recognized. I want to be heard. I want to prove myself right. And when someone challenges you, that part of you rises up like a warrior, charging into battle with words, with arguments, with impulsive emotions. We think that the more we talk, the more we defend our point of view, the more we will gain the upper hand. But the truth is, at that moment, we are losing the most important thing, control. In this world, silence is no longer seen as strength. Criticism is celebrated, speaking out is encouraged, and the ability to speak to win is praised. But because of this, silence has become a rare and extremely valuable expression of inner mastery. I once saw a close friend of mine, a very successful businessman, publicly criticized at a large meeting. The attacks were not gentle, personal, even insulting. The room waited for him to respond. A sharp retort, a heated debate, but he didn't. He just smiled, nodded, and silence. The room fell silent. The critics were confused. Eyes began to turn to him, and they saw not weakness, but a calm, proud, unshakable inner strength. He had said nothing, and yet he commanded respect. When you are strong enough that you don't have to prove anything, you become dangerous in a very special way. And I know, this goes against what we were taught as children, that we should explain clearly. Don't let others misunderstand. Or, if someone says you're wrong, you have to argue back. But most of these teachings stem from fear. Fear of being judged, of being hurt, of being looked down upon. In fact, you don't have to participate in every argument just because you can. Sometimes silence is the most profound answer. It creates space for things to cool down. It gives the other person time to think about what they just said. It gives you time to observe, analyze, and choose your response, instead of letting your emotions guide you. Silence is not avoidance. It is a strategy. It is a choice. It is the power of those who know the value of their words, and do not waste them. In today's video, I will share with you, why do we often get caught up in pointless arguments, even though we know the consequences? Why is it that the more you argue, the more you lose control? And how to use silence as a sharp tool, not to escape, but to assert position and protect inner peace? Remember, silence is not the absence of words. It is a powerful presence in a noisy world. You don't always have to have the answers. You don't have to win every conversation. You just need to know where you are, and whether the words are actually helping you move forward, or just pulling you into an energy-draining loop with no way out. If you've ever felt exhausted from arguing, regretting unworthy words, then this video is for you. Because sometimes, the greatest power comes from the moment you choose to be silent, and let your composure speak for itself. Have you ever been in a conversation where you knew, the more you talked, the worse it got? Where you make a point, the other person fires back at you as soon as you finish speaking. Where emotions rise, the tone of voice rises, and eventually, you no longer recognize why you started the conversation. All you know is, you feel hurt, drained, and utterly lost. It's no longer communication. It's a war, an emotional arena. Many people confuse arguing with connecting. They think that getting it right is the way to resolve disagreements. But the truth is, most arguments aren't about understanding each other, they're about winning. They're not really listening to you. They're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can launch their counterattack. And when that happens, every word you say, no matter how true, is twisted, distorted, or ignored altogether. Have you ever experienced this? I have, many times. And it took me a long time to realize something important. Not every conversation is worth my presence. Not every person is worth my explanation. Once, I had an argument with a very close friend about something very small. A misunderstanding. Nothing worth it. But because we both wanted to clear things up, the conversation turned into a long series of rebuttals, accusations, and finally silence. Silence not out of composure, but out of exhaustion. We didn't talk to each other for a month, and when we both looked back, the only thing left was regret for letting our reactions overwhelm our empathy. Arguing isn't always bad if both sides are willing to listen. But when you see one of these signs, stop. First, when the other person is not listening, but just waiting for you to stop talking to the object. Second, when logic is replaced by personal attacks. When you hear things like, "I knew it," "That's just your style," or "Everyone can see you're wrong." Third, when you start feeling like you have to prove it, not to build a relationship, but just to protect your ego. That's when the conversation shifts from connecting to competing. And what you need to do, not fight back, but step away. Silence, in this case, is not surrender. It is a refusal to participate in a stage that is not worthy of you. You're not losing by not responding. You're saving your energy for more valuable things, relationships worth building, people worth listening to, and conversations worth investing in. A mature person is not someone who always has a sharp reply, but someone who knows when to be silent and retreat. You may be misunderstood. The other person may think they won. But remember, you don't live to win petty arguments. You live to maintain your inner peace. And sometimes, the best way to win is not to fight. I want you to remember this. Every time you choose silence over an argument, you are not becoming weaker. You are simply choosing to be someone who is not caught up in the chaos. You are saying to yourself, "I am strong enough not to react." And that, my friend, is the clearest sign of a strong inner strength. So next time, when you're faced with a conversation that's turning into an argument, ask yourself, is this person trying to understand me? Or just trying to beat me? If the answer is to win, then smile and be quiet. You don't have to shout to be right. Sometimes, silence is the most eloquent statement you can make. There is a kind of power that makes no sound. It requires no shouting, no proof, no response. It is simply silence. But make no mistake, silence is not withdrawal. It is not avoidance, and it is certainly not a weakness. On the contrary, it is the clearest sign that you are in control. You see, anyone can get angry, anyone can react, yell, or argue loudly, but not everyone can stay calm when provoked. Not everyone can sit still when misunderstood, and not everyone can choose not to respond. even when they know they are right. Because self-control, in all circumstances, is the deepest and most lasting form of power. I want you to think back to the last time you were angry. Maybe someone insulted you, or betrayed your trust. Your emotions were running high. You wanted to scream, to speak out, to respond immediately. But then, you stopped. You didn't say anything. You just took a deep breath, observed, and stayed quiet. That feeling, at first it may feel uncomfortable, like you're holding back, but after a few seconds, you'll feel a sense of calm returning. And then you'll realize, you've just done something difficult. You've stopped letting others control your emotions. Weak people are easily drawn into other people's emotions. They get swept up in anger, dragged into fights they didn't choose. Strong people are calm enough to stand outside the chaos, and not let themselves get swept up in someone else's emotional waves. It's a quiet kind of power, but very real. And what's even more magical is, when you're silent, the person you're talking to will be forced to face themselves. They will no longer have the energy to continue arguing, because they can no longer draw energy from your reactions. I saw this happen very clearly in a big meeting. A young employee, under too much pressure, loudly criticized his boss in the middle of the room. Everyone held their breath, waiting for a reaction, but the boss just sat there, looking straight at the employee. Not angry, not arguing, not saying a word. In that space, you can feel the tension and then the break. The employee realizes he has gone too far. It is the silence that makes him listen to his own words. And sometimes, that is more powerful than a speech. Have you noticed? When you don't say anything, people start guessing what you're thinking. They start reflecting, analyzing, adjusting. Silence is the best mirror of their true selves. Not only that, silence creates a precious space, a distance between agitation and action. In that space, you are no longer an emotional reactor. You become a conscious chooser of response. And the difference between reacting and responding is the difference between being controlled and being in control. Reactors are people who let their emotions dictate their actions. They act immediately, instinctively. Responders, on the other hand, have listened, have a thought, and have chosen their words and actions to align with their values, not to please their emotions. When you keep silent, you also keep your sanity. And that clarity is the foundation for every good decision, every wise choice, and every lasting relationship. You don't need to say much to show your strength. In fact, the more mature you become, the less you talk, because you understand, words are powerful, and that power should be used at the right time, in the right place, with the right person. So next time you are provoked, angered, or misunderstood, try choosing silence. It's not that you don't have anything to say. It's that you're choosing what's worthy of your energy and composure. The silent person is not the weak one. They are the ones who control the whole game without having to prove anything. Sometimes, the wisest thing you can do is not say anything, but silence. It's not that you don't know the answer. It's that you know, not every situation is worth speaking up for. There is a very special power hidden in the right silence. It is not loud, not ostentatious, but has the ability to protect you from emotional traps, from energy drain, and most importantly, from losing yourself. Today, I want to share with you 5 situations where if you choose to stay silent, you will keep the most precious thing: inner strength. 1. When you are misunderstood by someone who doesn't really want to understand. You know that feeling? When you're trying to explain, speaking from the heart, but the other person just looks at you with suspicion or prejudice. It's not a conversation. It's a trial where you're a witness, a defendant, and already convicted. Explaining at that point will only exhaust you, because the other party doesn't want the truth. They just want to stick to their conclusion. And you don't have to try to account to someone who has closed their ears, their heart, and their sense of fairness. Silence does not mean you accept they are right. Silence is your way of saying, I don't need your validation to know who I am. 2. When others argue to win, not to understand. An old friend once told me, no one wins in an argument, only 2 losers. And I believe it, because when the other side just wants to win, they will twist every argument, ignore every fact, and not hesitate to attack you instead of discussing the issue. You may be right, but once you get caught up in that fight, you've already lost. Losing is when you let others control your emotions. Losing is when you waste your energy on a game that never ends. And the great thing is, you have the right not to play. Silence is your way of saying, I am not here to compete. I am here to keep my peace. 3. When you're angry, and words can hurt. I've said things I regret now, just because I was so angry at the time. You have too, right? Anger distorts thinking. Angry words are rarely true. But the consequences are very real: cuts to relationships, hurt to loved ones, and remorse in your heart. In times like these, silence not only saves you, but also saves the ones you love. Take a breath. Don't text. Don't call. Don't respond. You can come back to it later. But anger, if it is allowed to speak for you, will say things you never intended to say. 4. When the environment is not safe to share. Not every place is a place where you can open up. Not everyone is kind enough to trust. Sometimes, you want to tell the truth, but you feel something is wrong. And intuition tells you, no. Trust that feeling. Silence is not concealment. It is self-protection. Because privacy, when misplaced, can become a tool for others to manipulate you, control you, or judge you. You can share, but choose the right person. And if you are not sure, keep quiet until you are sure. 5. When what you're going to say isn't really necessary. How many times have you said something, then thought, I shouldn't have said that? Not because it's wrong, but because it doesn't do anything. In this noisy world, silence becomes more precious than gold. Every word you speak is an energetic choice. Every sentence is an arrow, either healing, or hurting, or meaningless. So before you speak, ask, is this statement necessary? If not, let silence do it for you. Silence, sometimes, is the most beautiful answer to trivial things. Dear friend, we cannot control the world out there, but we can always choose how to respond. And silence, when used at the right time, is not only a tool to protect you, but also a sign of bravery, of inner strength, and of mastering your life. You don't have to talk a lot to be respected. Just know when to speak, and when to keep quiet. We often think that to be stronger, we need to learn to speak better. But sometimes, The most important thing to learn is knowing when to keep quiet. Silence is not an easy thing to do. In a world that demands feedback, that constantly urges you to speak up, to state your opinion. The fact that you choose to remain silent is not because you are weak. It is because you are strong enough not to react instinctively. So the question is, how do you cultivate that special power? How can you be silent and still maintain presence, alertness, and dignity? I'm going to share with you 5 practical, yet incredibly effective, ways to master the art of silence. And thereby, yourself. Method 1. Practice stopping for 3 seconds before reacting. It sounds simple, but this is the secret of many successful and calm people. When you are provoked, offended, or even simply hear an opposing opinion, don't respond. Please stop for 3 seconds. Those 3 seconds are the moment you take back control of your emotions. It's the moment you move from reacting to responding. It helps you not to say things you will regret, not to act on impulse, and most importantly, not to let others control you. 3 seconds, not long, but enough for you to maintain control of the conversation. Method 2. Observe instead of reacting. Have you ever sat in a conversation and realized the person you're talking to isn't really listening? They're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can respond. Then don't be like them. Instead of preparing an answer in your head, observe not just the words, but also the person's expression, emotions, eyes, energy. When you observe instead of react, you begin to understand the person speaking more deeply. You see clearly where the hurt is, where the ego is, and where the real needs are not being met. And the magic is, the more you understand, the less you need to respond. Observation is a form of soft power. Quiet, non-confrontational, but incredibly insightful. Method 3. Practice speaking less and listening more. But listening mindfully. Listening is not about waiting for your turn to speak. Listening is about being truly present in the other person's words. And listening doesn't mean you agree. Listening is simply your way of saying, I am strong enough not to be shaken, and respectful enough not to interrupt. The more powerful a person is, the less he speaks, but every word he says has weight. And that starts with learning to really listen. Method 4. Turn silence into presence. Many people think that silence is avoidance. But in fact, if you are calm enough, steady enough, then your silence will make others pay attention. I once met a great leader who didn't talk much. But every time he walked into a room, the whole atmosphere changed. Because his presence wasn't in the words he said, it was in the energy he carried. You can too. Your silence can be the most powerful statement. I am here. I am observing. And I choose not to react just to follow someone else's emotional script. When you are quiet, but still present, you become the force in any conversation. Tip 5. Ask yourself a simple question before you speak. What is the purpose of saying this? A seemingly small question, but it can prevent you from hundreds of unnecessary mistakes. If the answer is to prove, to win, to vent anger, then stop. Because that's what I'm talking about, not who you really are. But if the answer is to clarify something, to connect with someone, to solve a problem, then wait for the right moment. And when you speak, those words will have real power. Because it comes from choice, not reaction. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Dear friend, silence is not an inborn skill. It is a habit, it needs practice. But once you learn to be silent at the right time, you will no longer be caught up in meaningless arguments. No longer waste your emotions on things that are not worth it. And most importantly, you will become the master of your own inner space. And I believe, the person who masters silence is the person who is very close to true freedom. Have you ever walked into a room, and just one person was sitting there, not saying anything, but it caught your attention? No noise, no attempt to stand out, but you feel something very special, an inexplicable attraction, and then you realize that person is the quietest person in the room. Silence, when used correctly, can do more than you think. Not only does it help you maintain inner peace, it also makes you more powerful, more trustworthy, and even more attractive. Today, I want to share with you 4 surprising benefits of knowing when to keep quiet. And when you understand this, you will no longer see silence as passive, but as an active strategy to take control of your life. 1. Silence makes you more attractive and mysterious. We live in a world where everyone is trying to talk a lot, to be noticed, to not be ignored, to be seen as smart. But the more you talk, the more likely you are to reveal your dark side, your weaknesses, and your immaturity. Meanwhile, the person who chooses to remain silent leaves others guessing. You know, mystery is a big part of attraction. When people aren't sure what you're thinking, they become curious. They pay more attention. They want to understand. And that attraction doesn't come from your looks. It comes from the self-control you demonstrate through silence. Silence keeps you from being exposed, from being led by emotions, and most importantly, you keep the right to choose when to speak up. And when you speak up, your words will carry more weight than anyone else's. 2. Silence helps you maintain your credibility. There is one thing successful people understand: speak little, but speak with value. In large meetings, good leaders often speak last. They listen first, observe first, analyze first, and then speak. Because they understand. Speaking hastily makes it easy to make mistakes. Speaking too much makes it easy to contradict yourself. And speaking at the wrong time makes it easy to lose trust. You may be a good person, but if you talk too much, you will easily come across as immature. Conversely, if you know when to keep quiet, you will be seen as calm, wise, and trustworthy. A person who keeps his mouth shut is the person others want to keep around. 3. Silence helps you master your personal energy. Every word you say is a time you spend energy. And you know what? Not everything in life is worth your energy. Pointless arguments, unhelpful comments, immediate emotional reactions, they all drain you if you don't learn to stop. Silence, in such situations, is not just about saving energy, it is about retaining power. The more you keep quiet at the right times, the more energy you have for the things that really matter: your career, the people you love, your personal growth. True power isn't about how much energy you have. It's about how well you hold it and use it at the right time and place. 4. Silence helps you control how others perceive you. This is something that few people notice, but it is extremely important. Silence at the right time. Sometimes a statement is more powerful than words. When you don't respond to an insult, don't react to a provocation, don't defend a wrong opinion, you're showing a very different class. Others will start thinking, why are you silent? They'll think, maybe this person is confident. Maybe this person is unshakable. Maybe they know something I don't know. Do you know what that means? They will not dare to look down on you. Being silent at the right time makes you seen as a strong person. Not easy to control, and always knows your worth. Blank. Underscore. Blank. So, if you ever thought silence was a sign of weakness, think again. The truth is, silence, in a noisy world, is the clearest expression of mastery. It makes you attractive, because you don't try. It makes you trustworthy, because you don't have to say much. It helps you conserve your energy for something more important. And most importantly, it gives you the power to choose when, where, and with whom you want to speak up. Blank. Underscore. Blank. So next time you feel like you need to say something, pause for 3 seconds and ask, could silence do this better? You'll be surprised to find the answer is, for the most part, yes. Not every war you have to fight. Not every word you say needs a response. And not everyone who says you are wrong, you have to try to prove that you are right. It's not a weakness, it's maturity. You know, mature people are not people who always win arguments. They are simply people who have learned how to win themselves. Overcome the anger in your heart. Overcome the urge to react immediately. Overcome the urge to speak up. And of all the signs of inner mastery, silence is the clearest and most powerful. Silence is not surrender. It is an unspoken declaration that, I'm strong enough not to need to say it. Take a look back at the people you admire who have inner strength. People who make you respect not only for their talent, but for their steadfastness and composure. Do you notice anything in common? They rarely argue. They don't need to speak up in every situation. But when they speak, you want to listen. And when they're silent, you want to understand what's going on inside them. It is a power that does not need to be shouted. No need to win anyone. Because true victory lies not in who speaks more, but who remains silent within. In this noisy world, where everyone is competing to show off, to argue, to get attention, the one who keeps silent is the one who maintains true courage. I once witnessed a large meeting where a defiant employee confronted his boss in a rude, emotional manner. Everyone held their breath waiting for his response. But he just looked, smiled slightly, and remained silent. Not a word of reproach. Not a single expression of anger. But the room felt, the silence was louder than any words. And then the other employee began to panic. He readjusted himself. Because the silence, in that moment, was a soft but powerful roar. You don't have to scream to prove that you're not wrong. You don't have to explain to people who don't want to understand. And you don't need to waste your precious energy on things that aren't worth it. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Once you realize that, you will start to be more selective about who you share your energy, time, and presence with, not because you are arrogant, but because you value yourself. You understand that words are like a treasure. If you use them hastily, they lose their value. But if you know how to be silent at the right time, your words, when spoken, will become diamonds. Maybe someone will misunderstand you. Maybe they will say that you are avoidant, or don't dare to face up. But let them think that. Because you don't have to prove anything to anyone, but yourself. Your silence, if used at the right time, becomes the most powerful language of self-respect and wisdom. And in the end, what really makes people respect you is not whether you are always right, always have the answer, or always win the argument. It's how you keep your composure, even in the most chaotic situations. Blank. Underscore. Blank. So, next time you feel like saying something, ask yourself, why do I say this? If not to connect, not to clarify, not to create solutions, then maybe silence is a better option. You can say nothing, but it was that silence that echoed more than any words. Silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong, in a way that only those who truly own their inner self can understand. Choose your words as an artist chooses his paintbrush strokes. And when necessary, let the silence speak for you. If you feel this video helps you see life a little more clearly, don't forget to like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel for more insightful content like this. You deserve to live a life where you don't have to talk much, but everyone listens.